everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the podcast, Confessions of a Nerdy Bible College Student. I'm your host, Luc Reed. Alongside me, my lovely co-host, Gwen Smith.
Hello.
So this is the first episode of our new podcast, which is coming at you from Kingswood University in Sussex, New Brunswick. Kingswood is a Bible college in Canada, and we are students here. Actually, both of us are from New York originally, but we ended up here in Eastern Canada. We are both huge nerds and are parts of a decently sized group of nerds here at school. This podcast is designed for us to talk about, and with some of our friends about, nerdy topics that interest us. And we thought we would have an interesting perspective as future leaders in ministry settings. Each week we'll have a special guest on with us on the show, and we'll focus on a specific topic that interests them. Who do we have for us this week, Gwen?
We don't have anyone this week. You said that
yes, that's right, Gwen. No guests this week, it's just us. Tune in next week to hear us talk with one of our friends about something. We haven't figured out that part yet, but we will. Today is just an intro day, introducing the podcast and, of course, introducing ourselves. So, Gwen, tell all the nice people about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Well, as you stated, I grew up in a small town in upstate New York called Lisbon. Not Lisbon, Portugal. This is Lisbon, New York.
All right.
Nice small farming community.
Yes. And what made you realize that you were, in fact, a nerd?
Probably when I was fairly young, around 4 or 5, somewhere around there. And I'd be running around in my Disney princess dresses while trying to beat people up with my toy lightsaber.
That sounds like a good story. What led you to Christ?
Well, I sort of grew up in a Christian home, but as I got older, I realized that I didn't have the personal relationship that people talked about. So I just kind of went through the basic movements that every Christian goes through. Mm-hmm. So after I tried to build that relationship, I started learning a bit about the basics of Christianity and what it's all about, and like going into theology and things like that.
Excellent. And why did you end up choosing Kingswood?
I had some people at my church that graduated from Kingswood back when it was Bethany Bible College. Mm-hmm. And they knew that I had an interest in theology and things like that, so they brought Kingswood to light. So after doing some research, I came up and visited and completely fell in love once when I stepped onto campus. So
yeah,
now I'm here.
Yeah, there you go.
So why don't you tell us about yourself, since I already introduced myself now.
All right. Well, so I also grew up in upstate New York, like we were talking about. But I come from a small town that is also farming, actually, called Pulaski. It's spelled Pulaski. And I guess there are a lot of towns that spell their name the exact same way, but from what I understand, none of them actually pronounce it like we do. They pronounce it Pulaski, but we pronounce it Pulaski. It's weird, I know. I think I truly learned that I was a nerd when I was in about 6th grade. I kind of had an idea that I was a nerd just because I was into Legos and Star Wars and a whole bunch of different nerdy things like that. But then I started making friends with people who had the exact same interests. And so I kind of identified from that point as someone who would be considered a nerd. Same as you, I grew up in a Christian home, but it wasn't until I was a teenager that I realized that I didn't actually, in fact, have a relationship with Christ. So I did something about it, and I became a Christian, and I started living a Christian life. And I ended up at Kingswood because I had a lot of different interests and passions and things that I like to do. And I could have done a lot of different things, but I felt like God was leading me into full-time ministry. And so I just waited to see where he would lead me from there. And I ended up being able to come up to the school, same as you, and as soon as we pulled into the parking lot, I fell in love with the campus. So Yeah, that's my story. Well, it looks like that's all we have time for today. Just to clarify, we don't actually work for the school, Kingswood. This podcast isn't a product of Kingswood. It's just coming from some of the students while we're going to school here. Next week, we'll have another topic, someone else to hang out with, and all that fun stuff. Till then, I'm Luc Reed.
And I'm Gwen Smith.
And this is CNBCS. Stay nerdy, dive into the Word, and have a blessed week.